Hello mathematicians, this is Mrs. Petravo with another homework video. Before we continue, I would like to go over the expectations. Make sure you set up your notebook or note paper. Write title and date. Read the directions yourself. I do read out loud, but you could read it yourself. You could always pause the video and take notes. Please do not just skip mindlessly. And last but not least, think. Don't just copy what you see. So here's problem 7-19. Go ahead and read it to yourself. There's a lot of information, and then decide what you need to write in your paper. So at this time, this is my second read, and I understand that I have to graph the information. Well, we have time in seconds, and looks like they're counting by fives, and we have distance in terms of FT stands for feet, and looks like they're large numbers too. So as we are planning on graphing, we want to copy this little table in our paper and then have space to graph. After that, the question is, what is Beth's rate of travel? So rate, remember, was something that we are comparing. We need two different informations, which we do, but at the same time, it actually means how fast someone is going. So in this case, instead of saying how fast is she going, they're using the word rate of travel. So at this time, I already wrote down my table and I prepared the X and the Y axis. If you haven't done so, pause. The X axis, I'm going to, it does count by five, so I can see it, but I have to label in seconds, and I will make sure we know that it's by time. I will spread it out, so maybe every 3 little squares will be counting by fives, or you decide how to do it as long as you equally. And looking now at the y-axis, or the other piece of information, they're counting by 11, so each equal piece I can say that's 11. Just make sure you're counting by equal distance. So it's a different scale. We're going to call it the y, and definitely let's write the word distance. So pause the video and divide it equally by counting by those numbers. So now it's time to plot our points. So each piece of information, so I'm going to look at the time is 5 and the distance has to be 11. So these two pieces of information makes actually one order pair or a point. So going at the 5, I can go up to where the 11 is, or I could do it at the same time going from the 11 and from the 5. So there's two different ways, whichever way you prefer, but it is 1 point. Similarly, try the other points on your own and then come back and check. So pause right now. Before we continue with the directions, please check and see, do you see any connection between all these points? Might be our first time doing that. So I'm definitely noticing that they are on the same line. And remember that actually represent the speed or the rate of travel of how far Beth has been going. So let's make sure we know that this graph and table it's with Beth. So Beth's graph or Beth's table is both the same thing, or data. Now the other thing that they want us to find, so A and B, let's look back. They said rate of travel. So I remember from our class notes that when we are doing the word rate, it means like comparing those two things using a unit, getting to per 1 second. Like we want to find the time in 1. So which of all those points can we use? Let's see. Well, I like the one that has the 10. So writing as a ratio first, or rate, so 22 in terms of feet compared to 10, and that's in seconds. So if I want to know how fast she's going, the idea is to have 1 second. So how fast is the traveling when there is like a 1, and that looks like it will continue, so as equivalent fraction. So what would we divide by? So purposely I picked the 10, but we could pick any of those, and that should give us the same information. So let's record that. So when I divide by 10, and I'll record it in my ratio, I could do mental math here. It will be 2.2 and then ft, feet, and over here becomes 1 second. So now we know that Beth is traveling with that speed, 2.2 feet every 1 second. Let's record that in a complete sentence before we go to example C. So pause the video and record it. Letter C. If Amy travels at a rate of 75 feet per 30 seconds, would the line representing her distance and time be steeper or less steep than the graph Beth's rate? Explain your reasoning. So we do have Beth's data over here. They're asking if we were going to put Amy's and compare it, and it's 75 feet per second in terms of data. So I can't put it here because this is Beth's, but because it's speed of travel, how fast someone is moving, I could compare it and then decide whether it's going to be a higher point or a lower point. So 30 seconds, so it's going to be, so I was counting by 5. So 30 seconds will be somewhere over here. So let's use different colors. So, and then they're asking 75 feet. Well, on my paper, I didn't leave a lot of space, but I know it's going to be way higher based on the number. So I'm looking for the number 75 feet. So looking up, it's going to be, next one, 66. And then another 11, 77. So somewhere over here, so a little bit steeper. So I could say that is definitely steeper. So that's my explanation by putting that point there. Now another explanation I can use is writing it as a ratio or rate to where I can calculate and compare them and see which of the girls is faster. So let's record that in our notes. So letter C, Amy, or Amy's information or data. So we wanna, she is moving 75 feet, and then it's compared with 30 seconds. So I want to get to 1 second so that I can compare it. Remember, we need to have the same units, which we do, seconds and seconds, but we need to also have the same numbers. Another idea, some of you might say, oh, if we multiply this by 3, we can compare it right away and we have the 30 seconds. So what a great idea. So do you want to divide or do you want to multiply? So let's decide. So I decided to divide so I could find the 1 second. So divided by 30, that's gonna give us right away the equivalent rate or 1 second on the bottom in terms of movement. But what we do on the top, we do on the bottom. This is our giant 1 idea. So we need to do a long division to where 75 feet divided by 30. So it's gonna give us a number in feet. So pause and divide or use a calculator. Okay, I decided to do a long division on the side where I set up the 75 divided by 30. So I need to be thinking of how many times 30 goes into 7. It doesn't, so we could leave this blank or have a 0 for a place value. Then the next opportunity is again 30. How many times does it go into 75? So only 2 times. So 2 times 30 is 60. And once we find the multiplication, we have to subtract. I'm keeping everything in a line underneath, so that's 15. Now the decimal I already placed, notice on top. where the decimal line is, and then I'm going to bring the 0 down to next to the 150. And I'm going to show that. And we start the process all over. So what number times 30 will give me 150? So yes, 5. So 5. So right now, I'm getting exactly 150, so I can stop with my long division. So this is 2.5 feet compared with 1 second. So now, similarly to what we did with bets in terms of a sentence, I wrote rate of travel, or also called speed. Bets was 2.2 feet for 1 second, but I wrote per second. And now we want to record Amy's data. We were able to explain our reasoning. So make sure you're writing a full statement about Amy. Thank you for watching. Okay, I forgot to do my conclusion. They ask us which line will be steeper or who is travel faster. So definitely we want to know that Amy is traveling faster. She's moving faster because it's more distance for the same amount of time, which we decided to be the 1 second. Thank you for watching.